Sullivan from Premier Body Armor, and today we're joined by Sam Paredes. Sam, thanks so much for being a part of this episode with us.
Sullivan, it's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. I look forward to chatting with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's definitely a joy to have you on the show today. So I just wanted to, for people, if you're not aware of who Sam is, Sam, we really enjoyed working with him at Premier Body Armor. He is a board member, he's a member of the board of directors for Gun Owners of America, and he's also an executive director for Gun Owners of California, and he's also a national spokesperson for Gun Owners of America. So it's like I said, it's a true joy and honor to have you on this episode today and just talk through different experiences we've had working together and your experience. Sam is truly on the forefront of the battle for the Second Amendment and testifies at many different legislative committee hearings for proposed bills that are trying to ban our rights for the Second Amendment. And so, Sam, we really appreciate the work that you're doing. If you could just share, for people that are not aware, a little bit more information about the Gun Owners of America and a little bit more information about Gun Owners of California.
Sullivan, thank you. I'd love to do that. People don't understand that Gun Owners of California is actually the oldest pro-gun political action committee in the country. We were founded in 1975 by Senator H.L. Richardson, who served in the California State Legislature for 22 years. At the time, he was a member of the board of directors of the National Rifle Association. And he went to his fellow board members and said, hey, listen, they're trying to ban handguns in California. Do you guys mind if I start one of these new fangled political action committee thingies that were just created by Congress and the California legislature after the Nixon Watergate scandal? So these political action committees were created, and Senator Richardson was the first one to start one on the Second Amendment. So it started in California. It was extremely successful immediately. And then we said, you know what? We're doing so well on this, we need to do it nationwide. So that's when we, Gun Owners of California, created Gun Owners of America. And we've been doing it since 1975, 1976, ever since. So we are, for GOC, we're approaching our 50th year next year, and as well as GOA. So they're going to be in their 49th year. So we're super excited. We do only three things, Sullivan. We lobby in the legislature for the right to keep and bear arms. We work in elections to elect pro-gun candidates to office so that we don't have to do so much lobbying. If you elect your friends to the legislature, you don't have to go and convince them about what the Second Amendment means. You know, you work on the other people. So elections are super important. And finally, we work in the courts. That has been probably the most focused area we've been spending our time in, filing lawsuits and amicus curiae. Those are friend of the court briefs regarding almost every lawsuit across the country that has to do with the Second Amendment in some way, shape, or form. We do briefs to support those lawsuits and encourage the judges to make pro-constitutional decisions. So we've been doing it a long time. We've been very successful, and everybody knows our motto is we are no compromise. We will not compromise on the Second Amendment ever in any way. So a lot of people like that, and that's why so many people are supporting Gun Owners of California and Gun Owners of America, and we are where we are today. So that's the brief rundown.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I didn't realize until, honestly, researching for this interview, that the Gun Owners of California were there at the very beginning of challenges that were coming to the Second Amendment, and that they were, like you said, there at the very beginning, fighting those battles, having those conversations, testifying, working as lobbyists in elections, and then now in lawsuits as well. It sounds like you guys are pretty spread out nationwide and have your hands full.
We most definitely have our hands full fighting for the Second Amendment. Yeah, and Sullivan, it's a passion for us. It's not just a job. Many of the people that have been associated, especially at the highest levels of GOC and GOA and Gun Owners Foundation have been around doing this for a very long time. And this is not a job where we're going to get wealthy. We're not going to be able to go buy boats and exotic cars and expensive suits and all kinds of stuff like that. We do it because we totally believe in the cause. We are committed. Our families are committed with us. We sacrifice from our personal lives in order to maintain this fight. And so, yeah, we're in it to win it all the way to the end. And once we do that, maybe we'll pull up the old rocking chair on the front porch and sit down and take a little bit of sip of moonshine and enjoy the work that we've done. But we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
Right. That's what it's all about. Just sitting on the porch with moonshine and being proud of the work that you did with your life's vocation. You've been doing this for how many years now?
I started in 1980, so right after I graduated from kindergarten. No, almost 45 years.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Next year will
So
be.
that's definitely something you have to be passionate about that wakes you up every morning, or, you can't last 45 years in something that you're not passionate about.
Yeah. They say the perfect job is a job that you cannot wait to get to every day. And that's kind of the way it is here. We're deeply committed. We enjoy what we do. Yeah, there are some tough and difficult times. There are some setbacks, but we are committed to learn from every setback we engage in, to learn something. What residual came from a battle that we lost? Do we have better lists, more fundraising abilities? Did we identify new talent? Did we make new connections with new companies and partners that would like to work with us? And then we use those for the next engagement that is inevitably going to come up. So, yeah, it's definitely a passion. I enjoy waking up in the morning and coming to work.
What originally drew you to this line of work?
Well, that's really a good question. And to be perfectly honest, I grew up in East Los Angeles. I went to school at Pepperdine University in Malibu. I got a degree in political science, and I majored in political science, and I minored in Lori Richardson, who became my wife, and she was the daughter of Senator H.L. Richardson. And from that point on, I learned so much about the Second Amendment and the Constitution and confrontational politics that I said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so I've been, one of the goals of my life is to continue to promote and further the legacy that Senator Richardson created with Gun Owners of California, Gun Owners of America, and keep fighting for future generations. I'm now in the process of trying to find somebody who's going to replace me, take over from when I have to pass the baton, but we're not quite there yet.
Yeah. You still got a lot left in you, it sounds like. And it's pretty miraculous to hear, too, just how everything fell into place of meeting your wife and learning through your father and just already studying political science and having that passion for it. But especially at such a young age to realize this is what I want to spend my life's vocation serving. And with that, of all the time that you've spent of, as you shared before, different processes of learning this worked well, we're going to partner with this company into this next venture. But I'm sure you've seen so much evolution over time. Has your perspective, have you watched it just evolve with it over time, or there's a subliminal foundation that stayed constant, but some things have evolved? What does that look like for you?
So it isn't so much an evolution, but a growth. And there's a little bit of a difference. I've seen how at the beginning it was all about strictly the Second Amendment and the Second Amendment fighters, and we did our own thing, and we lobbied and we electioneered and we filed lawsuits, and that's what we did. And we did it all with the help of tens of thousands, and now in the case of GOA, millions of people who have sent us $25 or $35 a year to be able to do what we do. Unlike the other side, who gets sugar daddies who send them $1 million check every year to continue to do their anti-gun stuff. we have operated with a very grassroots oriented support base, and it was like that for a long, long time. And there was a very real separation or difference between the industry, those involved in gun commerce, whether it's dealers all the way to manufacturers and everybody in between, and then those of us who are the fighters for the Second Amendment. There was a separation and a divide. And as time grew, we found more and more companies, i.e., Premier and others like it, who have decided that, you know what, our involvement in the protection and defense and restoration of the Second Amendment is not only the right thing for us to do patriotically, but it's also the right thing for us to do as a company, because it is part of our world, and if we can preserve that, our company can grow and blossom and expand and sell more product, and so like Premier and other companies have started to realize that, hey, we need to be partnering with these organizations that are truly our friends. They're not behind us. They're not in front of us. They're right beside us, moving forward the business, the politics, the Constitution, all of these things forward together. And then with the support of the industry, of course, it makes it a little easier to do all of the things that we do. It supplements the resources that we get from our $25 and $35 a year members, and it's not always a direct financial support that we get from the industry. It's marketing support, it's product support, it's encouragement, it's critical information that we need to have for when we do go into lobby. We do talk about these issues. We have the right and accurate information, and that is worth its weight in absolute gold. So, yeah, I've seen in my 40 plus years a growth and a partnership that has been like this, and it's getting closer and closer and closer to like this as we move the Second Amendment forward in this country. So I'm super excited. I mean, I'm having way more fun right now than I was having when I was in my 20s fighting for the cause. So it's cool.
It's pretty wild to think about too that typically whenever there's growth, especially in something of such a nationwide growth and so much quantities, bringing in so many more members, bringing in so many more people into what GOA is doing. Sometimes whenever you have that growth in quantity, you start to lose that quality, but that GOA has specifically hit a strong mark that it's actually, like you said, the grassroots connections, and it's deepening those relationships. You're not walking ahead or behind, but you're walking alongside of each other, supporting each other, that the two are going in tandem, and just how much more explosive that growth is, that you have the depth to it, but then you're also reaching the multitude as well. And that's something that we really enjoyed at Premier. And for this past month or so, to attend the GOALS Leadership Summit, the GOA's inaugural conference, and just to see so many companies and so many brands and so many people that are heavily involved in the industry in one place together. That was just something really remarkable to watch GOA pull that off.
Sullivan, that was a thing that was a long time in coming, and it took a long time to produce and to make it happen, make it a reality. It is unlike any of the other major association or industry trade shows out there. People like to liken it to SHOT Show or the NRA members meeting or Wild Turkey Federation. It was significantly different. The companies that were there, I believe it was over 250 different companies were represented. Most of them have already agreed to come back next year because they had such a great experience in talking with super committed grassroots people, having the ability to network with other businesses that have the same foundational drive for what they do, and and knowing that they're supporting Gun Owners of America and the task that they in order to support us, there is one caveat: you have to commit to being a no compromise company, where you will not compromise on the Second Amendment. I mean, Premier didn't even blink an eye. That's where we are, and there were other companies that did the same thing, and some of them have changed. Some of them had in the past had thought that maybe we need to compromise on some things in order to keep going or not lose everything, and I think some of them have learned. Um, and we had some of the biggest manufacturers, some of the smallest manufacturers in the country. They're firearms related, product related, body armor related, service related, parts related. It was truly an amazing experience. And then we had probably the greatest collection and assemblage of top notch content creators for YouTube and Rumble and the firearms related media of any uh, effort that's ever taken place. I talked to a lot of the content creators, and they said, "Sam, we've never done this. We've never done it where we can get all of our, some would call them competitors, but our compatriots in the influencer community to sit down and say, how are we going to fight to win this thing together? What can we do in our area? Right now, we are not competitors. We are brothers and sisters in arms. So what can we do?" And the conversations that took place were just, I mean, the hair is standing up on my arms, if you can see, was so important, and we gave them that opportunity to do that. And then they all gave workshops and seminars that people wanted to meet their favorite content creators and shake their hands and tell them about their favorite episode, ask questions, and learn from them. So it was a hugely educational event as well, and we were very, very pleased to put that on and put together this unique group of people that we want to improve on for next year.
Yeah, that's what I really love to see as well, is that I remember seeing leading up to the event that there was going to be workshops and panels and for these people that are leaders in the industry to share and join in discussions and even if not really so much at the insight of debate, but just sharing different perspectives, whether it was concealed carry for women or it was battling Second Amendment rights, all kinds of just different depths of the industry, to have them in a room together and then to have people absorb that discussion, absorb that information, those perspectives is something that to me really set the event apart and was just driving forward even more that vision of, we're not just here to have companies show up and sell you stuff and get cool content marketing. This is about equipping people and giving them the knowledge to go forward in this same mission that we're all here for.
And Sullivan, that provides us with a completely different approach to these things. In that, I mean, we had workshops on the importance of dry firing. We had an entire hour of a discussion about the importance of dry firing as a part of your training, and then we had workshops on stop the bleed. We had workshops on the top legal commentators in all of the lawsuits that are happening. We had everything in between, and what you said is so important because it allows us to work together, and it allows those people who are supporting us to know who it is in the industry that is truly their partner. These are the people that you need to be paying attention to in the industry for your product needs, because they're with you. And I'm telling you, no matter whether you were a prepper or a coffee drinker or a gun buyer or whatever parts or body armor or insurance, you can go to this one place and find that all of the people that believe the same way you do and want to achieve the same goal you have are going to be there, and you can talk with them. And that was fun.
Yeah, that just cuts through the process of having to cut through the weeds and get to know people and connect, and like you said, network with people that are already operating on that same conviction and that same understanding. There's not going to have to be a compromise of your integrity of, from a company's perspective, what content creator am I working with? Do we share the same value and perspective? That's already met. And then for a content creator, does this company, can I put my name behind this company And it just kind of feels like GOA of having that event has vetted that process because of the condition of anybody that's here is under the understanding that there's no compromise, that integrity is everything. So, and I will say too, for myself, years ago, whenever our VP of marketing, Jason, the president of the company, Alex Stewart, and Frank Stewart, the founder and CEO of Premier Body Armor, it was almost like when they met you at the Gundy's event a couple years ago and the conversations that y'all have, when they brought that back to us here at our headquarters at Premier Body Armor, it was like even just a simple conversation lit that fire of what are we doing about body armor? It's being challenged in the Second Amendment. It was coming off the hills of New York where there was the ban of purchasing body armor. So it was just already going into that conversation with you of encouragement that somebody else is fighting this along with us, and that to come off of New York and that being such a devastating thing that passed through, that there is hope that we're going to continue fighting this in other states. And yeah, so I just remember them coming back from the Gundy's event and talking about meeting you and just feeling very, just very passionate about this and working with GOA. And from your side of things, whenever you met them at the Gundy's, you, I believe, were going to California for a hearing for a bill. So if you just want to share a little bit more about what was happening in that timeline on your side of things.
Sure. My conversation with your head shed, your leadership team, was not only super encouraging, but all kinds of light bulbs were going on into my head, and it reminded me that because of a lot of the work that's been done in the courts, like the Caetano decision, where they declared that anything that can be used offensively or defensively to defend oneself is protected by the Second Amendment. In that case, they were talking about stun guns, but that extended to everything else: knives, body armor, and what happened was the good Lord saw that I met your team and we had our conversation, because not a couple weeks later, there was a bill before the California State Legislature to ban the private possession of body armor. They wanted to make it illegal to possess, to purchase, and they're saying that criminals are availing themselves of body armor and using it to survive gunfights with the police and all kinds of sheep dip they were describing. So gave me a brilliant idea. We could go in there and argue the Heller, McDonald, Caetano. This was before Bruin, and argue the case constitutionally why it's wrong to ban body armor. But because of my interaction with your team and gave me a great idea. Okay, I'm going to do a show and tell. And with the help of Premier Body Armor, I think this show and tell was epic. I walked in there with my grandkids' backpacks. The author had already talked about, what they wanted to do: ban body armor, ban the private possession, the acquisition, all of that stuff. And so I walked in there with my my grandkids' backpacks, and I said, I don't know what you're thinking, but you're not going to prevent me from protecting the lives of my grandkids. And I opened up their backpacks. One was Spider-Man and one was some other cartoon character. And I pulled out Premier Body Armor shields, backpack shields that were in my kids' backpacks. And I'm saying to them, you're going to try to prevent me from protecting them from a killer that you can't prevent from getting into a school. You haven't been able to prevent it. You're not going to be able. And then you're going to tell me that I can't give my kids and their teachers the last possible line of defense to save their lives. You've got another thing coming. And then I explained to them, you guys watch way too much TV and way too many Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. You think body armor is this plate carrier camouflage thing with the shoulders and the ceramic metal plates and AR magazine pouches all the way around, and your communication device and all of this stuff. You think that's what body armor is. And in most cases, when you see that, it's not body armor at all. All it is a carrier. It's just a ballistic nylon vest that people wear to carry magazines around, and they're not going to carry a 15 or 20 pound plate carrier, and they're walking around the streets or anything like that. They're not going to do it to commit their crimes. And you think it's body armor because you watch too many movies. And then I said, let me show you what body armor was. And I happened to be wearing your amazing body armor shirt that
The
has
Everyday
got,
Armor T-shirt.
yeah, front and back. And I said, this is body armor. And they looked at it like, and I said, this is the kind of body armor that the Highway Patrol would be asking you to wear in case there was a threat against you. This is the kind of body armor that people choose to wear. Criminals aren't wearing this. As a matter of fact, let me tell you how bad the situation is and how warped your thinking is. You charge somebody with a crime. They commit a crime. You send them to prison where they don't make a lot of friends. Usually they make a lot of enemies. And then once you let them out of prison early, they're coming out and they don't have a lot of friends. They probably still have a lot of enemies on the outside. And you're saying, okay, because you were in prison, you cannot own a gun. You cannot own a knife more than 3 inches long. You cannot own a baton. You cannot own any of this. Oh, and you cannot own body armor to protect yourself against somebody who might want to hurt you once you are out of prison. What kind of sense does that make? What kind of sense? It doesn't make any sense. So they ultimately, in that committee, amended the bill to apply only to prohibited persons. People who are not allowed to have guns cannot have or possess body armor, which is a lot better than what it was. It's still not good, but the law-abiding citizen was protected in their rights to own whatever body armor they want for whatever reason in whatever configuration, and that's what we were shooting for. That's the message that we have to take to New York. We're going to in lawsuits challenging New York's body armor laws, and in any other state that wants to propose this, we can take that same argument to them, and we'll do the same show and tell, and let them know that they are absolutely warped in their thinking. That body armor is probably the single most essential piece of equipment that somebody have for self-defense, survival. If you can't survive, you can't defend yourself with a knife, baton, gun, rifle, anything else. So being able to survive is incredibly important, and that's why my heart is. I mean, thought about getting a tattoo that says protected by Premier Body Armor, but then you couldn't see it if I put the body armor on,
The
or
ballistics of it, yeah.
silk screen on my body armor, so that people could see protected by Premier. And it is such an essential part. People need to open their minds and open their brains to understand that it isn't just the gun that you carry every day. It's not the AR or the AK alone. It is everything that we choose to use to defend ourselves. And panels for our children, um, body armor for the potential that we might have to fight to defend this country from enemies, domestic and foreign, and when we feel threatened enough that we need to protect ourselves against a criminal, evil element that exists out there, whether we like it or not, we have the God-given right to defend ourselves, and body armor is a part of that equation. So, anybody wants to argue with me about it? Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. And two, I love the point that you had made during the hearing as well, that body armor is a completely passive way to protect yourself. There's nothing that is used as an attack or an offense. It's not an offensive weapon or object. It's strictly defense. And for a child to have it in their backpack, it's not a means or a way that they can harm themselves with it. It's not causing any harm to anybody. It truly is only for self-protection, that it's just common sense.
That's correct. Absolutely correct. I mean, I thought about it, but I didn't. I thought about taking out the one out of my kid's backpack and going to the author and going whacking him. But you see, that doesn't hurt. What kind of no? This is totally passive protection. So,
Yeah.
no, it's super important point. You know, the people are trying to demonize body armor, and it is such a stretch to make body armor evil, unless you are a habitual consumer of wild and crazy movies and TV programs where crazy bad people wear, you know, body armor of pretend body armor or to protect themselves, but that is not the case.
And like you had said before, the decision just completely, or the perspective or decision just made completely out of ignorance, that they see a plate carrier and assume that that is armor, and how practical and everyday the armor can be for anybody. I mean, you talk about chills earlier, the chills of watching that Superman, or really I should say like the Minuteman moment of showing the everyday armor t-shirt beneath your clothing, and for everybody in the room to just completely dispel that belief that body armor is this super tactical plate carrier object, when it's really just a lot more practical for any person. And I'm curious too if there was any type of like follow-up conversations or reactions from the people in the room about body armor.
Um, there were conversations amongst the members and the staff who pretty much directed the author to amend the bill, because they saw the wisdom, and this happened very quickly. They not only did we write to the committee about what the problems were with the bill, and as we didn't do quite the show and tell in the writing, but we explained it to them, and they were ready to go. And they said, yeah, basically, you know, we're going to look stupid if we do this. We don't want, some of you guys on the dais don't want people to be out there defending themselves with a gun. So, and there are people out there who will not carry a gun for whatever moral or ethical reasons they want. But to prevent them from defending themselves with body armor is unconscionable. It's immoral, and truly, it is taking and completely eviscerating the Second Amendment. Because if you want to protect yourself with body armor, it is two-way approved, and like it or not, that is the way it is. So we're going to fight to make sure that the government entities do not prevent law-abiding citizens from using their entire Second Amendment rights, whether it be an AR, or an AK, or a handgun, or a shotgun, or body armor, if that's what they choose to use to defend themselves and protect themselves. That's our goal.
Yeah, and we're more than thrilled to come alongside you in that mission and work in tandem with you guys to support not just body armor, but the entire fight of anything that's challenging, like you said, our God-given right to be able to protect ourselves. And so on top of that, I'm thinking about too, you reference these Supreme Court hearings that kind of preceded that bill and preceded that moment, especially the court case that was specifically more for the stun gun, but then it opened it up to other protective tools and assets. Can you share a little bit more about those four court hearings?
Sure. Real briefly, the Heller versus Washington, D.C., Justice Scalia talked about the concept that anything that's used for defensive or offensive or defensive use is protected by the Second Amendment. And in the McDonald case, the case also re-referenced that. And then Caetano was a case where a woman used a stun gun to protect herself. And the state where she resided in said that it was illegal for her to possess a stun gun. And so it took several years, but it went all the way to the Supreme Court. And Justice Alito said that, well, according to Heller and McDonald, we know that there are at least 200,000 stun guns in private possession used by lawful citizens for lawful purposes. That means they're in common use. That means that they are protected by the Second Amendment. And again, reiterating anything that is used for offensive or defensive purposes um, to protect oneself by lawful people um, is protected by the Second Amendment. So it's a building block. Heller, McDonnell, Caetano, and then the sledgehammer with the Bruin decision that gave the methodology as to how all of these things are implemented by the courts. And of course, the courts are trying to get around all of this stuff, and that's why we have to continue to go and fight in legislatures and fight in courts who try to ban stun guns or body armor or knives or batons or whatever they want to ban. And so there will always be this fight, even though we have a clear, defined directive from the Supreme Court that says that anything and everything that can be used for offensive or defensive purposes by lawful citizens that are in common use is protected by definition by the Second Amendment, and that is a God-given, unalienable right. So it's that simple. You want to argue? Yeah, go argue with our founding fathers. Go argue with Madison. Go argue with George Washington and John Adams and all of our founding fathers. They made it perfectly clear. And so our Supreme Court has also put their stamp of approval on this. This is the law of the land. If you don't like it, figuratively speaking, we're coming after you in the courts or in the legislature or in the elections. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's as simple as that.
Well, thank God too that that precedent was set, because I would imagine that the strategy or the name of the game would be, and again to go back to what you said with no compromise, to chip away at these small kind of outlier pieces like the bump stock or the body armor or stun guns. Those small pieces, if you can chip away at that, it's not going straight for the throat of let's just ban all guns. Let's start chipping away at these small things and build up some authority in that realm, if that's what you want to call it. But so then we can, the more passive you are, the more you're gaining ground.
Sullivan, you hit the nail on the head so hard it went all the way through the wood. They've tried to go for everything. They tried to completely ban handguns. They tried to completely ban assault weapons and magazines and all of this stuff. They're still trying, but they have failed miserably. So their only tactic is to try to fight us by a death of 1,000 cuts. We're going to go after body armor, like you said. We're going to go after magazines that are over 10 rounds. We're going to go after waiting periods. We're going to go after approved lists of lists of approved guns that people can buy. We're going to go, with waiting day periods, with excessive and extreme background checks. We're going to wait. We're going to challenge concealed carry weapons permits laws. All they're doing is biting at the fringes with the full intent of making us go to court to try to bankrupt us. They know that the more lawsuits we file, the more difficult it is for us to financially do the job that we have to do. But you know what? We're doing it, and let them come. And sooner or later, Bloomberg and George Soros and those people that are funding the anti-gun left, hopefully they'll get tired of wasting millions upon millions of dollars in a losing cause. So we're never going to give up as long as we have one person that sends us $35 a year, and we have a good attorney that will take a $35 ham sandwich as payment for a lawsuit that they're going to file for us. We're going to keep fighting, and we're going to keep plugging away. And together, we're far more successful, and it's a lot more fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It keeps the fight going along the way, and that you're not even letting it go on the small things, because that's like you said, death by 1,000 cuts, and just being super aware of that process. And that's the name of the game for the other side. And that's even more of the relentless passion of not compromising on the smallest things. I'm curious to know too, there's so much going on right now with these different proposed bans. You have the upcoming election. What do you foresee as the next major legislative battle for the Second Amendment, either across California or across the U.S.?
Well, the anti-gun Energizer bunnies will come up with anything and everything they can possibly conjure up in order to fight us. Right now, they are, um, they're allowing lawsuits against law-abiding citizens. They're it's all fringy. But the one thing that we can do to inoculate, unlike the COVID vaccine, to really immunize this country against the defeat or further diminution of our Second Amendment rights, is this election that's coming up. We have one candidate who has promised on day one to work to ban guns, ban magazines, ban our possession of them, buyback, which means confiscate our guns. And we have another candidate that said that at our goals convention, that said that I'm going to listen to gun owners of America when it comes to the Second Amendment and as president, and congratulating us on being no compromise. And those are our former Attorney General was the previous one, Kamala Harris. I've known her since she was a deputy, since she was a district attorney of the city and county of San Francisco. Super anti-gun, pro-criminal, no question about it. Hated death penalty for cop killers. Wanted to let criminals out of prison. Hated guns. Became the Attorney General of the state of California. First job she did was she fired an entire unit of drug enforcement officers at the Department of Justice because they endorsed the eventual winner, Governor Jerry Brown's opponent, for office. So she wiped them all out because they were obviously too conservative. Wiped them all out means that drug laws were not going to be enforced in the state of California. And then as U.S. Senator and Vice President, the chief anti-gunner, the director of the president's gun violence prevention task force at the White House. And now she's trying to distance herself. Well, I'm not really the top dog. Yeah, you are. They named you as the top dog, and that's what you are. So, you're barking the tune of the top dog, so you're the top dog. And the other one is former President Donald Trump. No question about it. We've had our issues with him in the past, but he has committed to being total fidelity to the Second Amendment in a no compromise manner. And we have that choice. Do we go with him, which will prevent a lot of these laws from coming through Congress and through the legislatures, because he will continue to appoint judges to the federal bench, district level judges, appellate judges, and even Supreme Court judges. And as long as he continues to appoint those judges like he did his first term, who serve for life, we are going to be in a very good place to judicially protect and restore the Second Amendment. And that is of utmost importance, not only for my generation, but your generation and the generations to come after you. So they're going to try all kinds of funny stuff, and I've stopped predicting, because every year, Sullivan, every year we go to the legislature and they say, if we can only pass this last piece of gun control legislation, we will prevent gun violence in California forever. If we can just pass this one piece of legislation. Then they pass it, and what happens? Nothing. Yeah. So nothing surprises me as to what they're going to try next. They're going to continue to try to push for an assault weapons ban and magazine ban. And they don't like the fact that the federal courts have now said that, oh, did you know that machine guns are protected by the Second Amendment? Oh, did you know that bans on bump stocks are unconstitutional? Oh, did you hear that homemade guns are protected by the Constitution? Oh, did you know that pistol-braced guns are protected by the Second Amendment, and that the BATF does not have the authority to change the definition of laws in order to promote their anti-gun agendas? So we are winning a lot, and we're going to continue to win a lot. And if we can continue to win, it's going to do a lot to diminish what the other side is going to be able to propose But we'll wait and see.
Yeah. And I think too, it's back to your point earlier of getting those right people elected and in those seats saves you guys a lot of energy in lobbying. Not that you guys don't like expending that energy because you're deeply passionate about it, but now you can take that and focus it onto different efforts or lawsuits, and just, yeah, they can master that area, and then you can spread and cover more ground that way, divide and conquer in a really great way. I think it'll be really interesting to see how things are going to unfold in the next few months. And yeah, I mean, that would be really incredible to see that unfold, to have those people in those positions, like you said, for your generation, for my generation, and just alleviate having to keep having those conversations in that way. Um, what battles is GOA or GOC currently battling?
Well, here in California, we had we have 2-year sessions of the legislature. Unlike most states, they have a session that lasts a couple of months every year, and they're done. Here in California, our sessions last 2 years, and we looked at well over 60, well, almost 100 bills since the beginning of last year, anti-gun bills, and this year we got down to only 3 or 4 bills that made it to the governor's desk. Um, a lot of it was circumstances. A lot of it was the hard work on the pro-gun side, bringing the truth to them, and bringing the truth to them in a manner that made a difference. Not only did we argue the constitutionality of these issues, we also argued, oh, you're going to do this program that is going to cost you tens of billions of dollars to implement. For you to register every handgun every year in the state of California, you're going to need a database that's bigger than the Department of Motor Vehicles. And we all know how efficient the Department of Motor Vehicles is with registering cars and boats and motorcycles and all that stuff. And you have almost double the number of guns in California than you have cars. And you're going to do that, and it's going to cost you billions. And they say, well, that means we're going to have to take billions and billions of dollars away from this school, lunch program, and we're going to take billions of. And so they decided to drop all of these things. The remaining bills had to do with safe storage requirements. We're taking them to court. Heller said that the governments, and then McDonald said no government can require people to keep their guns locked up in their homes so that they are not immediately accessible to them for self-defense in the home. That is the ultimate benefit of the Second Amendment. And so we passed laws that say, well, you have to keep them locked up. You have to keep them in state-approved lock boxes with serial numbers. And if the manufacturer doesn't pay their several $1,000s to keep their lock box on the list, and it falls off the list, and you're using one of those boxes, you're now using an illegal box to store your guns. I fully expect that they will come back with something goofy like, we expect all body armor manufacturers to put make, model, and serial number imprinted on every one of their pieces of armor of all types. And then we need them to submit it to the Department of Justice so that we can prove that they are body armor, and then put them on a list. And then body armor companies will have to pay to keep those, to store the copies that the state will keep to prove that the body armor is. This is the kind of goofy mentality that they think, and we're going to be fighting that tooth and nail. So, in Congress, they're going to keep pushing the semi-auto bans, the magazine bans, and we're going to keep pushing CCW reciprocity. We're going to keep pushing the abolition of the BATF, and at very least the handcuffing of the BATF. Maybe take the F out of BATF and just make it BAT instead of BATF. But we're going to keep fighting the fight, and we fully expect that they will never lay down. We believe in defeating our enemy. We don't believe in killing them, unlike they don't like us to the point to where they would like to see us dead. And so because we won't kill them, that means that they're always going to be there like cockroaches, always coming up with something new. You try to stomp them and stop them, and and here they come again with something new, and they're always going to be there. That's why vigilance is so important in defense of our constitutional rights, and we
Yeah.
just have to keep our eye on them.
It makes me reflect on the quote that's so often used about unburdened by what has been, and to just get the cockroach out of the way, and then we can move forward with what we want to do. And I think in my mind, that's how that translates pretty often. And there's something interesting you brought up too about the storing of the firearms, and it's covered by the Second Amendment, and having it locked away in a state approved lockbox. But there's been cases recently or legislator to be passed about if someone, let's say a student or a minor, were to take a firearm of their parents and conduct criminal activity or evil acts with it, that the parents are the ones that are held liable because they didn't have it securely stored.
So, Sullivan, that is a super good and somewhat nuanced question and approach that we have to take. We don't believe the government should have the ability to mandate that we do anything in our own homes with our own property, whether it's our guns, whether it's our food, no matter what it is. That doesn't alleviate the responsibility that we have as gun owners, as citizens, as lawful citizens, to do the right things given our individual circumstances. Remember, anytime the government comes up with a cookie cutter approach to everything, it's the same for everybody, it's a failure. It's the same for everybody, and it wrecks it for everybody. But if you leave it to the responsibility of lawful citizens to do things in their own circumstances, we have people in this country, believe it or not, who don't have any kids and never have any kids in their home. Why should we require them to have their guns all locked up? But for the responsible person who knows they have kids, they want to protect their kids, and they're going to do the responsible things more often than not to protect their kids and their family members from any sort of potential harm. And when you factor in the number of times that a crime like that actually happens, where kids actually take guns, the number is so small, which leads us to believe that people are doing the right thing by and large, because we have 500 million guns in America. And the number of times that we have a situation where a child takes a gun out of a home and uses it to hurt somebody or to commit some sort of a crime is so small. That lends me to believe that there's a different problem that we might have to be addressing, and not one that prevents the rest of the world from having to become defenseless in order to prevent a few irresponsible parents. So it is a very nuanced situation. Still, we have to be no compromise. You cannot deny people their right to keep and bear arms, period. Can't do it.
Yeah.
So, if somebody was irresponsible and negligent, there are laws against negligence. But we're going to fight them the whole way.
Yeah. Well, that's the point that the reason of bringing up that question, that's the point I was really glad that you made, was that just because this is not illegal doesn't mean that people that own these guns are being irresponsible, and that there's more cases that they are being responsible gun owners, or the couples that don't have kids that don't need to lock it up and need fast access if there were a home invasion. And I think it's very funny too, to your point earlier, the way of speaking the opposition's language of, okay, I could tell them, there's these Supreme Court proceedings, and I can show them I can show them all these things that they know, but money talks and time talks. And to sit there and say, okay, you want to do this, what does that look like practically? Okay, well, never mind, we don't want to do this. Like, how much time have you devoted into that, of how this would flesh out? That's funny.
Yeah, that's super important. You talked earlier about us going to the legislature to lobby and stuff. We know in the case of California that we're going to lose most of the arguments, and legislation is going to continue to move on in the California state legislature because of the nature of the makeup of the legislature. It is a majority of absolute left-wing progressives that run the legislature there. So when we go, we're not necessarily talking to them. because we know they're not going to pay attention. What we're doing is we are addressing not only the media that is listening, because all of these hearings are broadcast, all of them are listened to by the media, and it is the staff people who are the people that are advising these members of the legislature and saying, we don't have $50 billion to implement that law. Um, and no, we are going to be paying the car payments and the vacation home payments for the lawyers of the pro-gun side when we lose this case in court because it is unconstitutional. And if you don't mind paying the car payments and the vacation home payments of their attorneys, go ahead and continue to run this bill. So we have to do it because the truth will always have an impact. Maybe not to the members that are making the votes right now, but their staff people are listening, and people that are listening to the recordings and the broadcasting of that hearing is so important. And that's our audience, and we understand. That's why we go and we say and do what we do. Because, had it been up to the legislature, they would have never published my Superman thing with the Premier Body Armor. They would have buried that so fast you would have never seen it. But because we broadcast it and we were able to capture their video that they publish, we were able to let the world know what the crazy things they're doing in California are. So yeah, it's one of those things where you got to fight because there's a fight in front of you, and whether it's the legislature knowing you're going to get whooped, whether it's elections where you might make a difference where no one thought you would, but you don't know unless you get involved, and certainly in the courts where you're making huge progress. You got to invest a lot of time, effort, and money, time, treasure, and talent in continuing that fight where we are gaining the most victories. So that's kind of where we are.
Yeah, keep showing up, keep battling. That light can't be put out by darkness, and that it's not going to fall on deaf ears. And that's very fascinating, the strategy behind it, because initially you would assume they're showing up to speak to legislators, but to have that perspective of it's actually all these people on the outskirts, or that it's being broadcasted and making people aware. You don't know what you don't know. And if you're making people aware of things they hadn't considered, like body armor could be a panel inside a kid's backpack for school to keep them safe, why would you ban that? And especially I think about with New York, the law passed in New York that was prohibiting the purchase of body armor. And at that time, I worked in customer experience, and I just remember so many conversations with people that, one, weren't even aware that became a law and wanted to know why they couldn't buy body armor, and just completely didn't even know that had just passed right under their nose, and just dumbfounded by that. And so what advice would you give for just the everyday civilian of staying informed and practically being involved to protect their rights?
Sullivan, that is such an important point that you're asking me to address. Worst case for all of us is that something happens to us and we didn't know that it happened to us. We're not paying attention. But it is so simple to pay attention. Anybody who is a lawful gun owner, they carry guns, they use guns, they enjoy guns for whatever lawful purposes, whether it's collecting, shooting, protection, potential defense of the country, whatever their reason for getting them, is protected by the Second Amendment. And if they want to continue to feed that passion, they need to start paying attention. Super simple. Avail yourself of the stuff that's already out there at fingertips. Go to the websites of Gun Owners of America, Gun Owners Foundation, Gun Owners of California, Second Amendment Foundation, our friends at Firearms Policy Coalition, and even those big guys at Fairfax, the National Rifle Association. They have some good stuff that provides material. But they can also, in the case of New York, go to the website of the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association, who follows legislation regularly on an annual basis. You can get information and stay informed on what it is that's happening to your gun rights in your state. And if nothing else, you have nothing else, call GOA or GOF or GOC and say, hey, do you know what's going on in our state with gun rights? And if we don't know, we'll find out and provide that information to you, because we want you to, in California, we say, we want you to be armed and informed, armed with the firearms that you need and armed with the information that you need to be able to fight effectively, to protect yourself and to protect the Second Amendment. So armed and informed is super easy, and it's easy to do. Go on YouTube. Listen to some of the great content creators that are out there that are talking about everything that's going on in every state, every piece of legislation. There's somebody out there covering it. Find the one that's talking about your state, and they'll tell you what's going on. And they'll even tell you what you can do about it, who you can contact to be a part of the process. In our case, if you're looking at what's happening in Congress or what's happening in California, we have a legislative action center, which will, from the comfort of your couch, you can access this website and this link and say, I want to fight against this body armor bill in the Public Safety Committee. And we have a recommended letter that you can send to all the members of the committee, to the staff people, and you push a button and the letter goes with your name on it to all of them via email.
Yeah, it couldn't be more simple.
It cannot be more simple. So anybody who says, I didn't know, it's because you didn't care to know. Now that you know that you have to know a lot more. I'm doing my best Kamala Harris word salad thing. You got to know how to do it. It's simple. Let your fingers do the walking. You're not dialing anymore. You're pushing a computer key, enter, go to the website, the pro-gun website you want, put in your state, get whatever information, or be led to the people who have the specific information for your state. Shame on us if we aren't paying attention. And you know what, Sullivan, I hate to say it, that there are literally millions of gun owners out there that are not registered to vote. So if you're not registered to vote and you're not involved in supporting one of the organizations that are fighting for your rights, your opinion doesn't matter. You're not a part of the fight. So if you want your opinion to matter, register to freaking vote. And then inform yourself. Our website, we tell you who all the pro-gun people are in Congress and in your state legislature. Vote. Heck, you should be, as a voter, paying attention to the local dog catcher that is a supporter of the Second Amendment and voting for them, because that local dog catcher one of these days is going to be your state assemblyman or your state senator or your U.S. congressman or your U.S. senator or maybe even president. So we should be informed. We should be involved, and it's simple to do. Just get off your butts and do it.
Yeah, there's never been more information at our fingertips to connect, and just not even just knowing the information, but given the letter of this is all you have to do is press send, is at that point to not do that is just apathy, is what it boils down to. So I really appreciate you, Sam, and what you've done for Premier Body Armor and just GOA, GOC, the fight for the Second Amendment. And like I've said time and time again, we really have appreciated and are grateful for our relationship and working together, and appreciate your time today of meeting with us and just sharing more about the fight for body armor and how GOA is supporting us, and we are supporting them in that.
Sullivan, I want to make it perfectly clear to everybody who listens to this video and anything that Premier Body Armor puts out. I trust the lives of my grandkids and my family to Premier Body Armor. So do you think I have a vested interest in what they do, how they do it, and what they do to protect the lives of my family? You bet your sweet Bippy. And let me tell you, I know there are other body armor companies out there. That's all well and good. But we developed a relationship and a clear understanding that we can work together to move forward. And the benefit that comes from any activity that we do on the issue of body armor in partnership with Premier Body Armor will help all of the other companies. You know, rising tides lifts all ships. But this is here where we have developed the relationship. Anybody else that wants to dive in, the water is fine. But if you want to protect your grandkids, your kids, your family, I recommend Premier Body Armor for your body armor needs. They're top of the line. They're at the cutting edge, and they are deeply committed to making sure that you can protect your life by protecting the Second Amendment. So, thank you for listening, Sullivan. Please, my best to all of the leadership team there. Love them all. They are, and I pray for Premier regularly because, like I said, if you succeed, I succeed, and my grandkids survive. So that that's my heartfelt, passionate plea for people to pay attention to Premier Body Armor.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it. And that's what we wake up for every day. So thank you so much. I appreciate it so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.